I want you to look at this image. It's of an event that takes place in every town in the whole world right throughout the year. It's an immunization, a vaccination of a little child. You see the dad there, the child, and the doctor or nurse sticking the nasty needle into the child. As I say, this happens right across the world in every town and village every single day of the year. This is a common event. But look at this child. They're in pain. They are scared. They're turning their body in towards their dad and away from the doctor. But here's the question I want to ask you. Is this dad evil for allowing this thing to happen? No, of course he's not. We said this earlier. Of course the dad's not evil because he's doing it for some greater purpose, a greater good. He wants the child to be kept free from whatever the disease is he's being immunized against. But does this child understand what that greater purpose is, the greater good is? Well, maybe at this age, but certainly if they were 2 or under, they would have almost no understanding. Well, they have no understanding, in fact, of what is going on. They wouldn't understand about immunizations and vaccinations and preventing disease and any of those concepts. All they get is that their dad is allowing this nasty person to come with a big needle and shove that needle into them and inflict pain. But does the fact that the child not understand what's going on mean that there is no greater purpose? Of course it doesn't. It just means the child is too young to get it. Now think for a moment about, if I can put it this way, the intellectual distance between the child and their parent and the intellectual distance between us and the creator of the universe. And I think the point I'm making is just this. Is it possible that God has some greater good at play that allows us to go through some of the suffering we experience? It may be that we don't know what that greater good is. We don't understand it. But is it possible that that is what is going on? It seems to me it is. But the other thing I want to point out about this picture is this. As I said, the child is turning in towards their dad and away from the doctor doing the injection. I saw this kind of event as a children's doctor on countless times. And one of the things I noticed time and time again is that once it was over, the child would be very hesitant about going near the doctor or nurse that had done it, but would always throw their arms around their parent who has been trying to comfort them, even though the parent had allowed it to happen. Now, why is there this very different reaction towards the doctor or nurse who did it and the parent who allowed it? Well, I think part of the reason is just this. From the child's point of view, all they really know about this doctor or nurse who does it is that they're either neutral experiences of them or they're a person who comes and inflicts pain on them in some way. In contrast, their knowledge of their parent is of someone who time and time and time again has shown them love and care and compassion and kindness. Someone who has fed them and clothed them and looked after them and loved them. And the difference that makes is just this, that when something happens in their life that makes no sense, that is painful and difficult, even if they don't understand what's going on, they put it in the context of a parent, a mum or a dad who they do know loves them and cares for them deeply. And so even though they don't get why their mum or dad has allowed this bad thing to happen, they don't stop looking to their mum or dad for love and comfort. And I wonder if something sometimes goes on similarly with us and God. You see, the problem is this. This is a Larson cartoon, and if you can see it, it's got God at his computer and his fingers poised over the smite button. And there's this piano about to drop on this poor guy. The problem is, I think some of us have an idea of God which is a bit like this. God is just out to get us. God is a nasty character who either does nothing or inflicts pain and suffering on us. And actually, if our idea of God is something like that, then it's no wonder that when we actually experience suffering in our own lives or in the lives of people we love, that we run away from God. That we say things like, well, God, if that's what you're like, I want nothing to do with you. I don't want to believe in you. I'm just going to reject you out of hand. If that's how we think of God, if that's how we know God, in fact, it's the sensible thing to do, to run away from him. But actually, you see, that's not God. This is who God is. God is the one who gave his own son to die on a cross for us because he loves us that much. He loves us that he was willing to give up his own son to die and suffer for us. And you see, that's what changes everything for me. Because what it means is that I fundamentally know deep in my heart, deep in my bones, that God's attitude towards me is not one of wanting to inflict pain or suffering, but in fact, God's attitude is one of outrageous, extravagant, unbelievable love. And love that never, ever changes, and love that never, ever goes away. And I just know that God loves me that much. And what that means is that when rubbish happens in my life, when really painful things happen in my life, when suffering happens in my life, I say to God, God, I'm angry with you about this. God, I don't understand why you've done this, but I put it in the context of a God who I do know loves me. In precisely the same way that child puts their suffering in the context of a parent that they know loves them. So here I'm finishing. You see, it seems to me the reality of suffering is definitely a good reason to sometimes get angry with God. To ask God the question, why have you let this happen? But at the end of the day, it is simply not a good enough reason to doubt the reality of his existence or the reality of his love for us. And that's the thought, really, that I want to leave you with tonight. Thank you.